The last 6 months, I've been speaking with both traditional fiat bankers and also startups that are looking to become either Bitcoin banks or financial service providers in a way. And I think there's very, very interesting insights into the role that these organizations play in order to achieve hyperbitcoinization. So the first thing that we should tackle is this, right? Not your keys, not your coin. At least that's what we all here know and believe. Us Bitcoiners understand this and know it's very intrinsic and important and fundamental to the ethos of Bitcoin, right? But let's understand, or let's think about what hyper-Bitcoinization really is, right? So there's tons of different definitions, tons of different perspectives and points of views, but let's go with a very general one, and let's call it widespread Bitcoin adoption, right? I would dare to say that most of us here at the conference, and you folks here, are from one of these three groups, right? We came into Bitcoin from one of these groups. One is, we were probably educated in monetary issues and finance. That's a very common one, right? We were exposed to what money is, what inflation is, what central banks are, and we just had a bunch of questions, and we were like, this is not right. We need Bitcoin, right? So there's a group that came from that. There's the other ones that came from, you're just technologically sophisticated. You understand a lot about technology, you follow the trends, you admire the cypherpunks, whatever, but you're technically capable of understanding. It just seemed like a good idea, and therefore Bitcoin. And the other important group is those who are in dire need of a better monetary system. So typically that's not, folks from the US or Europe, but it's folks from financially underserved countries or communities like Latin America, Africa, and mostly everyone we see in Bitcoin today is from one of those groups. So not everyone from these groups is in Bitcoin, and usually what we're doing here with the way we approach Bitcoin and the way we orange pill other people, we're probably bringing people from these circles into Bitcoin. Now, what we have to think and understand is that the universe is much, much larger, right? There's folks that, with what we're doing today, we're not even getting close to them. They're not even paying attention. They don't know this exists. They don't know there's a problem. And that's the entire universe of people that require money to store value, to make payments, or to keep tabs, right? There's just an immense amount of folks out there that probably won't even hear about Bitcoin. And if things just continue going the way they're going, who knows how long it's going to take. There's some challenges I would like to propose to hyper-Bitcoinization. The first one, it's a very common one. I think we all know it, and it's custody, right? Custody is cumbersome. It's very difficult to custody Bitcoin. Maybe not for you guys, but like for a normie. Have you tried explaining custody? It's hard, right? It's very hard. After you mention a bunch of words and a piece of paper, everyone's like, what? No. I like my mobile banking app. What happens if I die, right? This actually, I'm a Bitcoiner, and I'm worried about this, because I don't know if I die, if my wife and kids are going to be able to, even though I've explained, even though I've left instructions, I'm not 100% sure they're going to be able to, grab my, it's not a big stash, but it's some Bitcoin, and they're going to be able to use it. So this is a real problem. Then there's the problem of education, right? If money isn't broken, why do we need to fix it? If I don't understand that money is a problem, if I don't understand that there's structural issues with the monetary system, why even bother, right? So education or awareness is a big limitation or problem to hyper-Bitcoinization. Then there's the problem of user experience. Most of what we see today as far as wallets or any other experience of an interface with Bitcoin is designed by folks that have been working with technology for a long time. But there's a whole world out there in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa that have very little awareness of financial technology. So maybe the UX that we have been designing today is really not the right one, and the experiences that will cause hyperbitcoinization need to be tropicalized and need to be much more culturally aware. Then, of course, we like to be proud that we don't have a CEO, right? In Bitcoin, we don't have a marketing team. It's a good thing usually, but a marketing team, a marketing budget, and a marketing strategy does go a long way when it comes to reaching the mass. So definitely a weakness from this perspective. And finally, there needs to be a bunch of financial services that today exist that take care of real needs that are out there, right? And there's some, we're starting, but we're talking about the wide range of financial products that don't currently exist or don't have the right form yet, at least for these financially underserved communities. We're talking about microloans, we're talking about insurance, we're talking about savings products and all that stuff. So, if there only existed an organization, an institution that could custody, solve the problem for custody, that could help with education and awareness, that could create this user experience that's needed, that could offer these financial products and services, create them, and could have the marketing budget and capability. If there only existed a company that could do this, and of course it does exist, right? We just don't usually like to think that they can be the solution for hyper-Bitcoinization. But I want to present today that they maybe are. So if a bank can do all of this with Bitcoin, then this may be exactly what we need in order to take that step from where we are to the next level in attaining hyper-Bitcoinization. Now, a centralized organization that custodies Bitcoin cannot be the solution, right? Because that's exactly what we're running away from. This is the problem, so how can this also be the solution? We know that banks are broken, but they're not broken because of the things they do right. They're broken because they rely entirely on trust. And a bank relies on trust in fiat. That's the reason to be broken, right? Because they require central banks. That's another reason to be broken. Because of inflation, fiat and central banks, the way governments operate, that causes inflation, and that's a reason why the system is broken. They rely a lot on people, and these people have the worst incentives to do what they do, and that's why they do it wrong all the time. And they really require transparency that's never, ever, ever been there. Even though it's regulated, even though it's designed to be transparent and auditable by anyone in theory, it's horribly difficult, even when you're inside a bank, to really understand what's going on inside the bank. So it's not transparent at all. So maybe if we can fix all of these things, we can have a bank that is a functioning bank, right? And that is sort of what we do at Galoy and what we're trying to do. So the idea is, Bitcoiners don't trust, so let's not rely on trust at all. And instead of fiat, let's use Bitcoin. Let's base our system on scarcity. No inflation, let's not base our system on credit, but focus it on Bitcoin. Let's use free and open source software so that it's really transparent, so that anyone can audit an organization and know exactly what's going on, right? We know what happened with FTX, and it's been happening with a bunch of companies right now. They meet some of these criteria, but they, of course, were not transparent at all, so no one really knew what was going on. There's some exciting things we're working on with Galoy, proof of liabilities and proof of reserves. This is a feature that will allow anyone to unequivocally know for sure that my bank, the company who's holding my Bitcoin has money or Bitcoin to back all the liabilities that they have. And I don't have to trust them because I understand the rules and I can trust the system, and the system is exposing unambiguously what the bank holds, and I know for sure that they have everything they say they have. So this is the equivalent of going back to the 1800s. They came up with the bank idea, and it's a little warehouse, and it's got some gold in there, right? But it's always closed, so you really have no clue if the gold is in there. They tell you it is, but it may not be. So this is like bringing a camera, a video camera, and you know exactly all the time my money is there, right? And everyone knows that their money is there. So that's what we can do today with the technology that we're creating. And finally, it's based on rules. It's not based on people. There's no incentives. So we know exactly what's going on. And if we can get a bank to act like this, then this may be exactly what we need in order to attain or achieve hyperbitcoinization. This is what a Bitcoin bank looks like today. This is definitely a success story here in El Salvador. This is Bitcoin Beach Wallet. Bitcoin Beach Wallet is growing like crazy. It's amazing the growth that we have experienced in the last couple of months. Almost 500 Bitcoin of transactions per month. So Bitcoin is accelerating, and this is the kind of institution that can achieve hyperbitcoinization. We still believe that we are here. We're very early, and if we can bring more Bitcoin banks into the ecosystem, we can definitely continue our path through that curve and make it much more quicker than the pace we're experiencing right now. Now, there was a photo there, but it didn't show up. Oh. Let's try to go back. Can we go back? I'm only going forward. Oh, it's a different button, sorry. Yeah, there you go, sorry. Okay, so there was a photo here of a bank, traditional fiat bank. So I think that Bitcoin Beach is an amazing bank, and it's growing, and it'll play a huge part of this, but it's gonna take time, right? 500 Bitcoin is still nothing compared to the amount of transactions that the real banks or the fiat banks are experiencing, right? So imagine there's a photo of a bank here. These banks are just a golden opportunity awaiting to be disrupted. And that's what I'm personally trying to do, and a big part of what Galoy is doing. I think that in order to, a big part of this, and this has to do with the user experience, is we don't want to talk too much about Bitcoin. It's not about Bitcoin. It's about using Bitcoin, but I think that many of the use cases are going to be the way this graph shows it, right? People are going to be transacting in dollars on one end and dollars on the other end, or from dollars to Mexican pesos, or from Mexican pesos to yen, and Bitcoin is going to be the rails. From my conversations with bankers, I think this makes perfect sense. They're just seeing Bitcoin as a technology. They're seeing Lightning as a medium through which traditional transactions, we may say, are taking place. Now, this is an easy step for a banker to take, as opposed to, moving all your treasury to Bitcoin. And here's let me share with you what I consider a very high-level guide to Bitcoining for bankers. So if you guys have access to traditional banks and you can refer them to us, that would be awesome. Or if you guys are a bank, this is an idea that you can use to start your Bitcoin journey. So first of all, you should establish a legal entity that provides the necessary flexibility that you will require, right? This depends, of course, by jurisdiction. But at least in Latin America, a thing that works really well is you create a fintech. It's a spin-off, it's another company, it's not related to the bank, and it's solving a particular need, usually with technology. So it's the perfect kind of structure, legal structure, to start solving one of these problems. Focus on an existing line of business, and it has to be a business that is profitable right now. It's an important business because that's where the big opportunities are, right? For example, remittances, that's a key one. This is solved. We have the technology to completely disrupt a multi-billion-dollar industry today, which is remittances, and banks could, in a very short amount of time, be very profitable by moving their remittances from the current structure to Lightning. After that, then you have to research, you have to learn, you have to find the right partner, and the most important thing, you have to resist the urge of solving any of your problems with shitcoins, because that, you will be surprised. All bankers that I talk to, they know exactly what's going on, they know exactly the problem, and they already know the solution. They're going to use whatever coin to move all of their payments business to that coin. I'm like, no. You got you're understanding the problem, but you really don't understand the solution just yet. So this is a very important part of what has to happen. After that, you should try to develop an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, or a prototype, as quickly as possible. And this prototype has to very clearly show how you're managing risk, because that's the main concern for banks, right? Are we being exposed to an asset that's not regulated? Are we in risk of losing due to volatility? All that stuff has to be addressed with your prototype. And usually with Lightning and with the right technology, you can have very little exposure to the Bitcoin volatility and really manage risk in a way that satisfies the regulator. And that's just the next part. You have to invite your regulator. So most regulators are pretty open to this. They just don't know anything about. And most regulators, at least in Latin America and in Africa, they have a very just cause behind them, or a vision of financial inclusion. And if you show them that this is a technology that, while managing risk, is also helping in this achieving financial inclusion, then usually they will be open to it, and you can actually, as a banker, help draft the appropriate regulation policies that are needed for this. And once you get all that, just get ready to disrupt the industry and change the world. So when hyperbitcoinization, that's going to be the shirt for next time. Right now it's when Lightning. The next one's going to be, please write it down, Daniel. When hyperbitcoinization. So I think hyperbitcoinization is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Now, widespread adoption of Bitcoin can be a very slow process. Here we have, this is adopted from Dan Held, and he foresees that hyperbitcoinization can come in, I don't know, 50, 100 years. And of course we don't want that to take that so long, right? We want it to be faster. So I think Bitcoin banks can play a role in really accelerating the curve of hyperbitcoinization. We can definitely focus on smaller startups that some of them are going to turn out to be unicorns and grow immensely fast, and it's going to be fantastic. But the fiat banks cannot be ignored. They have the market, they have the resources, they have the infrastructure, they have the ATMs, they have the branches, the customers, everything is already in place. They just need to adopt the technology. And once they do that, adoption is going to skyrocket, and maybe we can see this in much less time, 10 years or so. So that's it. Let's bring a better financial system to the world. Thank you.